Spanish, and I've taught apologetics at school church, at this church as well. I usually teach high schoolers. I do teach 8th grade world religions, though, so I teach some middle school. And my specialty is actually not in psychology or counseling. My specialty is philosophy. So if you guys are interested, Jake, could you hit the next slide, please? I have an apologetics YouTube channel. If you guys want to check it out, apologetics. Does anybody know what that is? No, nobody knows what that is. That's giving reasons for your faith. You know, or one. Oh yeah, no. Isn't that weird? It sounds like apologizing. No, it's weird, but it's a Greek word, apologia. That means to give a reason for the hope that's in you. You know, so if you have questions like, does God exist? You know, why believe Jesus is the way? What about all those other religions? And then can you hit the next slide, please? And if you're interested in like philosophy, I have a website. I'll put my thephilosopher.com is my website. So if you want to check out anything that pertains to like stuff we're talking about today. All right, go ahead and hit the next slide, please. But today we're talking about bullying. And so I have a question. We're going to ask the question, what is a bully? And the reason we're asking this question is not because, we just are interested, but really we want to know, like, how do we deal with bullying, right? So there may be some behaviors that are bad behaviors to do that are not bullying, all right? So just because something that we're talking about, just because it's not bullying doesn't mean you should do it or that it's okay to do, all right? So we're going to try to figure out what bullying is so we know how to deal with it, but not because everything else is okay. So my question to you guys is, what do you guys think? What is bullying? What would if you have just examples that you think are bullying, or if you have like, this is what it means to be a bully. What do you guys think? It's early. This is the first service. I never go to first service. It's crazy. Okay, picking on others. Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, saying mean things. It's weird, but like that's the worst stuff. For boys, I don't know. When I was a kid, we would. I'm not suggesting this, but when I grew up in New Orleans, we used to fight all the time, right? But when you next day you'd be friends, and you know, like that wouldn't be. It was when they said mean things about you that you were really like, oh, yes. Absolutely, very good. Yeah, absolutely. Because we always have those bad days, right, where you say something, like you're just rude to your sibling or something like that. But that doesn't mean that you're a bully. That might just be an unkind thing that you do. Absolutely. Yeah, one of the questions that we'll ask is, why is somebody a bully, right? Why do people do the things they do? Because it's kind of bizarre behavior, right? Like, why do you care? Why would somebody be mean? What's the point? What do you get out of it? Yeah, absolutely. Oftentimes, this is a way of lashing out because, you were trying to, hurt others first because you've been hurt, right? Absolutely. Before they hurt you, you hurt them. That's one reason. Absolutely. Um, Anybody else? What is a bully? What is bullying behavior? It's okay if we don't have anything else. No? All right. So for the purposes of this talk, I'm going to set out a few criteria that we're going to call bullying. Jake, could you next slide, please? So let's say, for example, I'm trying to get a name that nobody would be named. I'm going to use my wife's name because she's not like this. But let's say Mariah is one of the girls at your school, right? And she's always posting those cute Instagram posts, right? And you look at that and you're like, oh, I'll never be as cute as her. Oh, and she does like the bikini pics, She does this one. I don't know why. Like you look down and like don't. It's weird, right? But let's say you're taking those pictures and you're like, oh man, I wish that I could be like that. I feel bad because I can't be as cute. And when you're older, this still happens, right? My wife actually the other day was really upset about one of her friends is always on vacations, right? Always like traveling places, and I'm broke as a joke, so we don't go anywhere. You know what I mean? So she's like, I always wanted to travel, and every time she's in some new place on Instagram, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not what their life is like. But in any case, so do you guys think that is bullying? she's making you feel bad by her Instagram posts. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, what do you want me to take a picture of? Me sitting around my house? Like, what do you want? Or me posting like ugly pictures? You know, like me just being sad. Yeah. So, uh, this is a bizarre behavior because I don't think this is bullying, right? Especially because this person isn't posting pictures for you to be feeling bad, but for them to feel good, right? Um, maybe again, maybe this is behavior we want to stop, right? Maybe some of the behavior is immodest, right? Maybe we should watch what we wear in certain places. I try not to show too much leg, you know. I mean, I'm just joking. Show plenty. No, I don't. Maybe I know Paul talks about not causing your brother to stumble, you know, like not causing people to sin. And maybe even though your pictures are totally fine, you want to stop posting because you find out that people don't feel good about it. But you know, again, like what are we expecting of people to show like terrible pictures of themselves? You're gonna say something? Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, isn't that bizarre? That it's almost like set up for that, just to be me, right? Even your pictures of like, yeah, and I'm going to the Dominican Republic with the high school, and I'm already thought about like, oh, I can't wait to, you know, you have the pictures of this is what we did and this is what we did, but Jesus talks about like not letting your left hand know what your right hand's doing when you're doing good stuff, right? Otherwise, like if you're doing something good and you're like, look at me, everybody, I'm such a great person, right? There's your reward, he says, right? Isn't that weird? Like, and I'm not saying that's what I'm hoping to do is to let everybody know how great I am, but yeah. Otherwise, anyway, could you hit the next slide, please, Jake? So the first criterion that we're going to use is intentionally directed at someone. So this would be if your Instagram picture was like, you suck, by the way, I'm better than you specifically. Or if you are commenting on somebody's Instagram, yuck, gross, right, or something like that. But usually that's not what happens. Usually it's more like, you know, DMing somebody something, right, like something mean. All right, next slide, please. What about this? What if you are, and somebody already said this, so I think, what is Stripe Pants? Bella? Is that what your name? Yeah, so Bella already said this, so this was really good. What if you got a guy, does anybody know who this is, by the way? No? Probably not. Yes. Yes, Ravishing Rick Rude. He was a wrestler in the 80s, yeah. So let's say this guy comes up to you and says something really mean about you, right? You've never seen this person before, but just says something, you know, yeah, nice. I have those exact same rainbows, so let's just say, I'm not making fun of you, but he's like, yeah, nice flip-flops, right? Um, is that bullying? Well, like Bella said, that might be behavior we don't want to do, right? That might be rude behavior. That might be unkind behavior, but for our purposes, we're not going to call that bullying because, you know, if somebody says something unkind, typically you can just sort of, you know, say, okay, no big deal. But if somebody is constantly doing it, then we're going to have to treat it differently. All right, so next slide, please. Repeated, right? Very good, Bella, absolutely. Repeated behavior. And then the last slide. What about this one right here? Are these guys bullying? Look at this poor fella. No? Yeah, why not? Why aren't they bullying? Bella. Yeah, it looks like you. And if you're a dude, I mean, this is how we live, right? We make fun of each other all the time. I remember saying horrible things to my friends, right? Constantly, right? I don't recommend it, but we used to tell your mama jokes, right? Your mom's so ugly. I don't know why. I have no idea why. And we knew each other's moms, and we never thought, like, does he really think my mom is ugly? Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Now, it oftentimes is messing around with somebody, right? And in fact, like, it seems like a lot of us do this. I think the reason why this isn't considered bullying, we probably won't feel like this is bullying, is because they can do it back to you, right? Have you ever noticed, like, when you're messing around with your friends, you say something about, hey, look at your shirt, isn't it ugly? And they say something, hey, look at your shoes, aren't they ugly? Right? And you tease each other like that, but you always know that they can tease you back. Bullying, will say, is when you do something to somebody and they can't do it back, either because you are much bigger than they are or because you're much more popular than they are. Just imagine yourself, if you're going to do something and you're wondering, am I bullying this person by constantly doing this to them? Imagine, what would I think if they did that back to me, right? Would I be upset about it? And this is, to be quite honest, and I'm not proud of this, but when I looked back on my career as a high school student, I have to say I did bully some kids. I've been bullied too. I was bullied when I was younger. And then when I was a high schooler, I would do stuff, I would mess with people that I actually liked, right? Like I had friends that, or I guess, I don't even know if they would consider me friends, but I knew people and I would mess with them. And when I look back on it, if they did that to me, I would have been mad. I would have been like, and I mean like, I would have been like, what do you think you're doing, right? Like, you don't do that to me, I do that to you, right? I'm the one that, what's weird is I liked those guys. And I actually thought I was being funny, and I thought that they liked it. But when I look back on it, they probably felt pretty bad because they couldn't do it back to me, right? Because it wasn't like a give and take kind of relationship. So Jake, could you hit the next slide, please? So what is a bully? Let's say an imbalance of power happens, right? You're either like much older than this person, or you're much more popular, or for some reason you have a power over this person so that they can't do it back to you. Okay, next slide, please. So another important thing to note is that there is two kinds of bullying, overt and covert. Overt means like it's out there, everybody knows, right? You do it out in the open. Open and obvious to all, like punching, hair pulling, fighting, cyberbullying. Cyberbullying here, though, would be something like you are going on somebody's Facebook. Nobody goes on Facebook. Only old people like me, right? Instagram. Your parents are on Facebook, so you don't do it. They're sending snaps, right? But what's weird is Snapchat, right? Like, you could do it directly to a person, or you can do it as your story, right? If you're doing it as a story so everybody can see, like, look at how ugly, right? That would be overt bullying. And then verbally assaulting somebody just in front of everybody. Covert would be something that you're doing, but it's not in front of everybody, right? It's not so that everybody can see. It's like coming up and whispering into somebody's ear, I'm going to beat you up later. Gossip and rumors. Yeah. I don't know. They probably don't do that anymore. Gossip and rumors. This would probably be the more pernicious, right? Is spreading rumors. Did you hear about this dude, right? Mean texts to people. I know, like, I know this is a problem because I know people that have gotten in trouble for it in my school, and it's so weird because they text somebody, and like they're not mean kids, and they just think that like they're messing with somebody, and that person feels awful, right? And they wouldn't be able to text it back again, and so they feel bullied. And then when it comes out, when that person finally says, "I've had enough, I'm going to the principal," and the principal brings that other kid in, he's like, "Well, I don't understand. Like, why is this so bad?" Right? Little does he know his friend, this other child, has been, dying inside. Right? Intimidation, eye rolling. Right? Every time this kid, have you ever seen this? Like, somebody like is kind of like the weirder kid in class, and every time they say something, you're like, oh, right? Like, geez, what a kook, right? So yeah, things like that would be covert bullying. All right, next slide, please. So, as Christians, then, this is our question was, as Christians, what do we do with this, right? And I think the first thing that we have to think of is, am I doing this, right? I think with all of our behavior, we are behoven, right? We must think, am I bullying? Am I doing those things that we laid out? Jesus was notoriously almost loving of sinners, right? He loved people that were unlovable, right? People that nobody liked. However, he was very angry at bullies, right? At the time, they called them the religious bullies were the Pharisees, and they were making life really hard for people that were not up there with them. It was pretty much bullying, right? Making everybody else feel bad, and they can't do that back to you, and it's repeated behavior. They were pretty much bullying everybody, and Jesus was angry, hated them for that, right? So just know, as a Christian, that is for sure, like, number one, we're going to have to be looking at ourselves and wondering, am I acting this way? Am I bullying? Next slide, please. Number two, what should I do when people are being bullied? I think a good question here is, what would Jesus do? And I think oftentimes you would see Jesus sticking up for people. Remember the woman who was going to get stoned? They were going to throw stones and kill her. Does anybody remember that story? Yeah? Bella. That's three, man. Bella is killing it today. Yeah. So this woman is in trouble for doing the wrong thing. Everybody hates her, and they want to throw stones at her and kill her. This was the rules. And they come to Jesus, and they want Jesus to okay it. They're like, hey, Jesus, she got busted by the law. We should kill her, right? And he says, yeah, well, the first person who hasn't sinned amongst you guys, yeah, let that guy throw the first stone. And then they all feel bad. So he stuck up for this woman, even though people would be angry with her, right? So I think that's probably something that we need to do. Jake, hit the next slide, please. And finally, I think this is the big question that we probably all have. How should I deal with being bullied? What if I'm being bullied at school? I'm a Christian. What should I do to that person? Is it okay for me to punch this person out? Is it okay for me to bully back? Jake, could you hit the next slide, please? So I'm going to read to you this quick story, what Jesus said, and then this is, I think, what we'll take from it. He says, you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. In other words, if somebody takes your eye, you take their eye. If somebody takes your tooth, you take their tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? Tax collectors were considered bad guys in those days for reasons we don't need to talk about. But yeah, not tax collectors today necessarily. I don't know, maybe they are. And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even the pagans do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. In other words, if you're only kind to people that are kind to you, how hard is that, right? But Jesus is saying, I want you to love your enemies. Next slide, please, Jake. So, how should you deal with bullying? Number one, Jesus says love your enemies as well as your neighbors. Now, does that mean when they're about to punch you, no. and that also doesn't necessarily mean, but by the way, slapping of the cheek doesn't mean physically assaulting you. That means insulting you, right? They might do something like push you, for example, and you just, all right, man, but if you are getting, assaulted, you can stick up for you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to sit there and take it, right? Bella? Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, could you walk away from that without getting further injury? Then probably, like if you knew, you had a good reason to believe it would never happen again, right? Let's say they were just angry and punch you, and you're like, oh man, but I could walk away from this. Okay, but that's not to say don't defend yourself. You know what I mean? Yeah, if you're getting punched in the face, you can fight. Especially if somebody else is getting bullied physically, and you have to stop. But I mean, of course, that doesn't mean I'm not telling you go fight people. Go around and you're like now Daredevil. I don't mean that either. Yeah, good question. Yeah, I would say most likely, yeah. Yeah. Most likely, if they were just being mean to somebody, here's what I would do. Um, and hit the next slide, please. So this is one of the things that we want to worry about is strategies, right? Strategies are how do we deal with these things? Not, first of all, not seeking revenge, right? That's one of the things Jesus said. Do not seek revenge. Let the Father take care of that. But I would say, number one, you should have in your hip pocket some words to take out, words to be ready, right? I would say something and I know it's going to sound weird at first, right? Just follow me on this. I would have something at the ready to say, "Hey, I don't like that. Please stop," right? In as kind a way as you can, because no bully is going to like just being told, "No, stop it," right? We don't typically like react well to that, but if you could start with a, "Hey, I don't like that, please stop it," then do that. However, here's the deal: I can't give you a list of things that you should do when you're getting bullied, right? Remember, bullying is repeated behavior. So here's what I would say: you have leaders, you have parents, and you have school adults. I would seek counsel from them, all right? Tell them, this is the relationship I have with it. You're going to have to figure this out, right? Like, you're going to have people, you're going to have to think about, number one, can I stop them from doing what they're doing? If you can't stop them from doing what they're doing, can I influence it, right? Can I somehow, like, change their mind in some way? And if you can't do that, you're going to have to figure out, how do I live with this, right? You're limited in your options and what you can do, right? So what I'm saying to you is, there's no algorithm. There's no, these are the rules of once you get bullied. And I highly suggest you come to somebody and talk to them about it, right? You're not going to be able to just say, like, okay, first I say this, then I say this, and then the whole thing is solved, right? It's just not that easy, right? Especially now that there's cyberbullying and stuff like that. So I would say, number one, always have words ready, like, "I'm sorry, please stop. I really don't like this. Please stop it." Number two, you have to think about, how do I deal with this person? Maybe this is a friend of yours from old school, and they're just trying to be mean because things suck, and I don't know. You're gonna have to. Can I talk to them one-on-one? Will that work? And then maybe you're gonna have to talk to an adult, right? Maybe you're gonna have to go to the principal and say, "Hey, this is getting out of hand. I need help," right? Something like that. Maybe you're not comfortable with that. Any case, hit next slide, please, Jake. Here is our questions for the day. And I'll stick around if you have additional questions as well. What were you most surprised to learn today about bullying? Number one. Number two, what kind of bullying do you most often see in school? In your school, what do you see? And number three, where do you see bullying as a big problem? Is it maybe out in the, if you're a surfer, when you're surfing? Is it I know Nate bullies me for waves all the time. No, where do you see it? Is it online? Is it where? Is it, what is that, saraha.com? Saraha, yeah, is it Saraha? All right, and I think we have a leader, right? I'll take someone over here. Girl leader is on her way, but go ahead and